in terms of individuals, guys that really need a strong second half. And let's start with Brian Thomas Jr. There's even league chatter that, could the Jaguars possibly try and move Brian Thomas Jr. before the deadline? That seems a bit presumptuous, but if somebody throws a deal at you that, it might be hard to ignore if they're looking more at last season than this season. But where do you kind of assess where Brian Thomas Jr. is, and how important is this second half for him in terms of changing the narrative on what's been a disastrous first half?
Yeah, let me break that into two parts. I don't think they're trading Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not saying some of these sources don't know what they're talking about, but I think they want him to be a Jaguar. I can tell you because like you and the rest of us, I asked. And I think the belief is Brian Thomas is going to be a Jaguar. They're going to try and get the most out of him. What happened wasn't a fluke. I think that's the belief. They just got to refine that. If it's going over the middle and making catches and catching the ball more cleanly, they got to figure out a way to get there. But I don't think the plan is to move Brian Thomas. I'd be very surprised if he's traded. I think right now, if you were in their meetings, their personnel meetings, nobody's talking about Brian Thomas being traded. They're talking about how to get Brian back to what he was last year. I think that's the conversation. So that's the first part. The second part is he's got to find that confidence again. He doesn't look like a guy to me that's playing with much confidence. Part of that is maybe not necessarily being the number one guy. So much was expected of him. I think it's an easier world when the pressure's off a little bit.